We ready?
We'll have to admit these people as they try to go.
Next year. I mean, yeah. If you want to do it, you know how to add them. Where is it at? It'll be right here. Where? It'll say right. Oh, yeah, I can watch it. Yeah, dang, right? That's what that thing is. Everything I can.
5:30 is time to start. 5:30 is time to start.
Great comment.
Jerry Moore, City Administrator. Lindsay Siegel, City Clerk. We want to thank you very much for participating in tonight's candidate forum for 2025. We currently have 3 city council members whose seat expires in December. And that's Sean Birdsall, Ken May, and Sue Erickson. And this evening, we do have some council members. Ken May is here. Sue Erickson is here, and Craig Conley. Mayor Christensen is also here. We've got 7 candidates that are running for the city council positions, vacancies. The mayor is also running, but he's running unopposed. As far as the rules are gonna be very simple. We're gonna ask all of the candidates to introduce themselves. And all of the questions are gonna come from you folks. If you have a question, and we'd like you to keep it to questions, not generalized statements or comments, please ask a question. If you have one, please stand up, ask your question. And the question will be directed to all of the candidates. And each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to every question. And yes, we are gonna keep track of the time. And we'll let the candidates know when they're close, when the time is almost up. So we'll let them know when it's 1:50. And they have 10 minutes or 10 seconds to finish up. So with that, before we get started, does anybody have any questions? Either the general public or the participants? All right, then, let's go ahead and get started. Start with introductions.
With me?
Starting with you, Amy. We'll go around the table and then we'll start with questions.
Okay, so I'm Amy Carlson. I was born and raised in New Hampton, Iowa, from Northeast Iowa, like Julie, which I didn't even realize until, yeah, crazy. Anyway, I went to Iowa State, which is how I ended up in this area, and I met my husband Bob there. And at the time we were living in Ames, he was working for John Deere in Urbandale. And we knew that we wanted to raise a family in a small. And so in that traveling from Ames to work, he would stop and drive through small towns, and Slater was just it. There was a house here that we looked at, one and done, and moved in. And so that's been almost 20 years already that we did that. So what brought us here is the small town feel, and we knew we wanted to raise our kids in a school district with similar class size to what I grew up with. Ballard and Slater just really fit that mold for both of us. And so for the past, I would say almost 10 years, I've been involved in different boards. I was on the Little League board for quite a while. About 7, I think 6, 7 years ago, 6, 7. I got on to the Parks and Rec. And so I guess I'm just speaking for kind of a promotion and what I've already been doing for you all for the past 6 or 7 years. So.
How old are your kids?
My kids, I have Blakely, who's a junior. I have Bryson, who's in 8th grade, and I have Bruce, who's in. You drive, they're fun, yeah.
It must have made it matter. Good.
That's it, yeah.
You want to start the time?
I've been known to go over.
Go.
My name's Taylor Christensen. I have lived in Slater now for, I think I'm in year 8. Moved here from Omaha, but I was raised in Madrid, grew up just west of Madrid. And graduated from Madrid in 2008 and pursued a college degree from Grandview University in Des Moines. Went into the commercial insurance business that took me to Omaha for a few years. My wife Emily is a Ballard grad, grew up in Huxley. We decided when we got engaged that we wanted to live back close to family, so we tried to select a place that was in between, and it just so happened Slater falls on the map right in between Madrid and Huxley, so it worked out for us, and we wanted a small community where we could raise our kids and our kids could grow up. We're fortunate. My family heritage starts in Slater probably 90+ years ago, when my great grandparents left the farm in southern Iowa and came and put their roots down here in Slater. So Slater's been somewhat like a second home to me since I've was born and raised here. Slater is where I knew my family came from. So we wanted to raise our family here, and so we moved back to Slater. My grandparents gave us a great opportunity here to buy our first home. Bought that and rented part of it and fixed it up, and then we had the chance to buy the house on Main Street where we live today. Love it in Slater. Very, very proud of what Slater is, and I think what motivated me to run 2 years ago and has outside of no one else wanting this job, what has kept me interested in running again is I think it's a great opportunity for me being a young person with a young family to shape what this community looks like for what my children are going to grow up in. And to try to control that and be strategic about it, because so many areas around us are growing so dramatically and changing so fast. I think the thing I love about Slater is how Slater is today. And so while I would really love to preserve it, we have to be strategic about how we do that, and so that our children can enjoy the same things we love about Slater. So those are just some of the reasons why I ran for mayor, and I'm glad to be your mayor. We've done a lot of things over the last 2 years while I've been mayor, but a lot of the work has just started with a lot of our planning exercises where we're working very hard to build out our comprehensive plan and talk and look at what Slater will be in the future. But also then all the capital plans that go into how much can we get done to improve the community, add amenities to the community
15
with
seconds.
the funds that we have. So I'm very honored to be your mayor. I hope that you'll choose to vote for me again on November 4th, but very humbled to be your mayor and glad to be here tonight. Thanks to all the candidates for being here.
Okay, my turn.
Yeah.
I'm Evie Reyes. I grew up in Slater. I was the 12th of 14 kids. We lived in Des Moines for a while for about 10 years after I graduated high school, and we came back, and my husband and I bought the house we grew up in. That was in 92. And we were so fortunate that my parents bought a little house across the backyard. So we had built-in grandparents, and it was delightful. I graduated from Ballard. I tried a little bit of college after that, but then I worked 3 years or so as a police dispatcher for Story County. I was one of the group of the first dispatchers there, and also for the Ames Police Department. So I'm good in an emergency. I then joined the Army National Guard in 1981. There I was a 2-time Iowa Soldier of the Year, as well as 4th Army FORSCOM Soldier of the Year. I started full-time at the state headquarters, mainly in personnel and recruiting. And when I was in recruiting, I was in charge of $500,000 budgets, a GSA fleet, had to plan. I'm used to dealing with government money and different buckets. I achieved a Bachelor of Science in accounting through Upper Iowa University, slogging through night school, dragging my kids there sometimes. I retired as a major in 2001. At that point, I went to work for an agency that did I was an instructional designer for long distance education for the military. I was a subject matter expert through that. I was a substitute teacher for a while. I highly recommend it for a while. I had a position at a Department of Energy funded nonprofit, and part of my duties there was also to keep track of data and to facilitate the accounting of the grants that were awarded. So I have a long history of service in my family. My mom served on the Rails to Trails, turning our rails into bike trails. She helped start the Slater Area Historical Association. And I have served in many volunteer positions throughout my life. I'm a mentor, still going, 25 years through the YSS program. I received an Excellence in Mentoring Award from Governor Reynolds in 2019. I was in the Ballard Soccer Club for about 15 years. I was president, coach, treasurer, referee. I was the president of the Ballard Music Boosters, where I helped develop long-term and short-term budgets that are still used. I was a coach for Girls on the Run. I served as a chairperson for Slater Parks and Rec Board. Again, we helped develop long-term and short-term goals at that point, some of which have been achieved and some that are still on the docket.
You're beyond your time.
You didn't give me the 10.
I give you 15, I give you more than. Go ahead.
Well, anyway,
You can wrap up.
I'm just gonna say, my husband and I, who also retired from the Guard, have a blended family of 7 kids and 11 grandchildren and 5 great-grandchildren. And 3 of our sons served in the military when graduating from West Point. And I mention that because, again, we're a family of service, and I'd like to continue that service here on the city council. Thank you.
Okay. Well, my name's AJ Strumfer. I guess my history isn't quite as long, but,
When you get to be my age.
when I'm a younger one here, so I guess, but I guess my history kind of starts in, early 2000s. I believe it was like 2001 when my parents moved here. Yeah, I've been a part of the fire department, been a part of Kelly Fire. I helped out with community club for a while. I've graduated from Ballard in 2011. I did go to DMAC for auto collision and some background in mechanics. But I after college, I worked at Interstate Batteries as a sales manager. That was a good job, but we were talking about starting a family and being on the road and stuff. It just didn't work well. So during college, I worked for the city of Huxley as a summer help position. And during that time, I guess I kind of got to know what city work is, as some would say, public works as a whole. I worked for Interstate for about 5 years, 6 years, I believe. And then I've now been with the city of Huxley for about 9.5 years. 5 of those years, I've been the wastewater superintendent. So I think I bring a unique skill set on that end of the board. I kind of know the way that public works works. I manage the budgets. I know a lot about water and wastewater and infrastructure as a whole. So I think I can kind of bring that to the table. But yeah, I guess
15 seconds.
what I've seen here so far with the current council and administration, now that we have, there isn't really any huge new ideas that I want to bring. I just want to make sure that our infrastructure stays intact, because I truly believe without an infrastructure, you don't have a city. So that's what I want to make sure the focus is.
Russ Terhar. I'm originally from Western New York, outside of Rochester, New York. Family of 3 boys. I'm the oldest of the 3. Graduated high school in 1994, went to college because that's what I was told to do by my parents, who loved me but didn't know any better. I was not, I got my associate's degree, and then I chased downhill skiing through my 20s. Competition mogul skiing even, living in Colorado and eventually Montana, where I met my wife, Mel. I moved to Iowa to be with Mel and her then 6-year-old son, EJ. That would have been 2008. And we lived in Huxley. Well, we moved from Jefferson to Huxley in 2011, lived in Huxley for 10 years. Bought the building here on Main Street where Public House and the Clean Machine reside, and we reside in 2019, at the very end of 2019. I've run the Clean Machine since 2008, actually 2005, because there was a Clean Machine in Bozeman, Montana as well. So I come from actually the opposite end of things. I come from the small business world, the private small business world. And I have a lot of experience in that direction, building a brand from the ground up, having an idea and bringing it into reality. Ideas are easy, but executing ideas can sometimes be a challenge. And I think I've demonstrated some of that. We have not only EJ that I mentioned, but also Max, who's now 15.
15 seconds.
Anyway, I want to play a part in, we're here, we're heavily invested in this town. We love it, and we want to try to make it as good as we can. We're heavily invested in this town and its success. So thank you guys for considering me.
Hi, I'm Erica Weeksberger. So I grew up just north of town, just a few miles outside of town. I graduated from Ballard, as did my husband. I have an accounting degree from AIB College of Business. After college, I joined the banking world. So I've been in the banking industry my full adult career. Most of that time has been in a finance related role. Now I'm in HR doing training and development. I work for a publicly traded multi-bank holding company out of Ames. We've been in town, my husband and I have lived in town for years, I think. So we're on our second old house that we've moved into and are improving. I've been involved in several different organizations in the Ballard community, but primarily the community club, Slater Community Club. For 7 or 8 years, I was treasurer for quite a while, and then am just kind of finishing up my first term as vice president. So community involvement's been very important to me, and so looking to be on council to just formalize that a little bit more, from a volunteer position to something that's just like a little more official. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
I'm Julie Weeks, a Weeks that was not born in Slater. I met my husband Craig, at Waldorf College. And once we were married, we moved to Utah for a few years and decided that we wanted to come back to Iowa to raise our family. If you want to know a little bit about me and you haven't read the signs, I do like red wine. I do like M&Ms. And because I'm married to Craig, you have to guess I am older than most of the residents in Slater, but as I look through this crowd, there's a few of you that might be older than me. We moved here, raised our kids. My professional life was always in Ames. I got involved in the hotel industry when we were in Utah. I got a job here when Gateway Center opened, became general manager, then worked for the Iowa State Center and Sheeman Building. And then finally worked for the Ames Convention and Visitors Bureau President and CEO, and also for Iowa State University Conference Planning and Management. So my professional time was a lot of it in Ames. I sold Ames, worked in Ames. But our personal involvement and our personal investments have always been here in Slater as a family. We built the first, I think in 1982 or 3, we built the first out-of-home daycare, which we ran for about 15 years, then we sold it. Craig has built multiple duplexes on some empty lots in town. Recently, when I retired, I was able to join the board of the Story County Community Foundation because I wanted to do something that wasn't Ames related. And doing that countywide, I also was able to help both the Historical Society and library set up their funds. Also got a grant for the Parks and Rec, and I think my business background is gonna be a little different, and I think that will help me with the business plans and some of the strategic planning that the city is looking at doing in the future.
All right, those are the introductions. Now it's time for questions. Again, if you have a question, please stand. State your question, and the question that you ask will be answered by all. So we'll start with Amy. So who's got the first question?
Oh,
We don't have questions prepared. The questions are from the public. Go ahead, sir.
All right. Each one of you, I want to know what your position is on the loss thing, because it seems to be that everybody here has got a great idea for the city. I'm all good with all that. The whole thing is at this time, you got 7 people running for 3 positions. One's not here. Or am I miscounting?
No.
You're right.
Yeah, I can count.
Tina House,
All
absolutely.
right, the question I want to know, where everybody's position, because whoever wins is gonna be doing something with that tax thing. And from the people I talk to, it's about half this way, half that way. And I think it's a reasonable question to get from you. It's a difficult question, but I think the public deserves to know what your stance is before we vote on it. Sorry about that.
Thank you, sir. Amy, you want to start?
Yeah, so you're talking about the 1% sales tax and how city
Right.
council would spend that money.
Are you in favor of it or not? Good question.
In favor of voting yes or no for it.
Correct.
Boy,
What
I
are you
tell
gonna
you.
do with, I guess the question I wanted to know is. If you're a no person coming in here and you're not, are they gonna vote for you? Cause you say you're yes or no, but I think people need to know where you're standing. I mean, I don't like the fact that we're having this vote with 7 new people running for council. Nobody has a clue what you're gonna do with that money. Half the people think it's gonna build a new senior center, new library, or whatever they want to do. So people are upset about not knowing. There's no transparency, if that's the key political word.
So, sir, your question is,
Well, I
if
wanna
the
know
candidates support the measure or?
Yeah,
oppose it?
if they're gonna support it or they're against it.
Okay, go ahead.
I gotta tell you, I'm still kind of on the fence about it. Is it okay to be on the fence until Tuesday? Honestly, I see both sides of it, and that's what makes this hard. I understand, you know, some people look at it like this is just a backhanded way of still raising our taxes, which we voted against 3 different times. And then I also understand that it can unlock the door to being able to utilize that money in other ways, which ultimately has to come down to the entire council. Like, that's how a council works. You have to do what's best for the whole community and not just for your own personal agenda. And so I think it is about having those tough conversations and figuring out the best way to spend that money. But I tell you, it's a tough one. I honestly don't know. I don't know if I'm voting yes or no on that. And that's just where I am right now.
One of the reasons I ran was for the exact thing you said, and I think that's the most challenging thing about the local sales tax vote that's on the ballot is. We don't know what we're gonna do with it. And so that's the hardest thing about it, in my opinion, is because we don't have a capital plan, when I came and started in the city of Slater. The capital planning was more of kind of a department head thing, and it wasn't a full transparent process. This is the first time, I think, in a while that we've done a robust capital planning where every department has to disclose what they need from a physical good. A lawnmower all the way to, I wanna re-roof a shed and build a new Morton building for the snow equipment. Those type of plans we're just starting to build, and I think that's what makes the local sales tax vote so difficult. And to your point, it feels like, what's the transparency? I don't know what this money's gonna be spent for. But a couple key things that I think are important to consider when you consider this is. The budgets that local governments are dealing with, cities are dealing with. Face a lot of scrutiny right now, and we have a state legislature who is looking at property tax reform and all types of reforms. Maintaining the city is not gonna get cheaper. Prices aren't going down the same way they aren't for you at your house. So the tool of the local sales tax, just to clarify, it is simply, this vote simply changes the potential use of those funds. Just because this vote passes, let's say with the yes vote, 50% plus 1 person, that doesn't mean that money goes anywhere but property tax relief. It can stay directed to property tax relief after that vote if it passes. The only change is it opens up a tool and expands the usage of those funds. The way that those funds, the usage can be changed is based on the city council
15 seconds.
determining to do that. And the way that the city council can do that is they have to publicize that, hold a public hearing, disclose what the usage is for. And then with a majority vote of the council could issue bonds into the future backed by those dollars. So a vote yes doesn't mean property taxes go up, and it doesn't mean that those funds go away from property tax relief day one and they're gone.
Time's up. Debbie?
Okay, well, Jerry can vouch. I have done a little research on this, and currently these funds are used for general fund needs. No money has been used to directly reduce your taxes. We're not lowering levies at this point. Your property taxes have gone down in the last 5 years, very slightly, like from 13 to 1,000 to 12 to 1,000. And that was due to state legislation. But the majority of your property taxes actually go to the school district. That's 50% of property taxes. 33% go to the city of Slater. And that includes 17% of that is the lost money. So we worked on a development of the capital improvement plan. So that's a 5-year plan. So that's basically saying, over these next 5 years, we need to expend our money on these things that fall within our budget. And this will assist in assessing how much, if any, of the lost money can be used outside of that primary budget. It will help predict expenditures. So those are things that if this passes, and I support it, because I am a fiscally responsible person that will listen to the citizens of Slater. This is not specifically for the library. In fact, I could argue that if this votes no, we will have less flexibility in how we fund big projects, which means we will have to bond for things which will definitely raise your property taxes. Where if the city council has the flexibility to use some of these funds for some of our big ticket items, then that is not an assurance that your property taxes won't go up at some point, but it certainly stops it from happening in the near future. And if where do you think your money is going right now? So $80,000 of that last year went to the recreation fields. Does that reduce your taxes? Do you think that reduces your taxes in the long run? So would it be better to vote on a bond for funding projects like that, which will raise your taxes, or having the flexibility to use this money? So I would vote yes, but I would do so in a fiscally responsible manner. And as the mayor said, we would have to have meetings and committees that would approve those expenditures. Thank you.
AJ?
I'm gonna kind of shadow Amy on this one. I'm not a yes, but I'm not a no. I don't want to pay any more taxes than anybody else, that's for sure. But I also, again, know how a city operates, and if there is no funds, you're not going to get some of these more major projects done. So I know that from my understanding of it is that we currently have this going to general fund. And if this is voted as a no, that's just that much less money that the city has to operate on. But that's the way that I've been told such. So I guess I'm not in favor of certain projects, but we already have a lot of things on the plate here in Slater that need to be fixed. I mean, we've got odor issues. I know that there's things in the works for that, which is great. That's where I would like to kind of make sure that these options are a viable option for the city. There's other things that, there's some major projects that need to happen. There's infrastructure here that needs to happen. So in that case, yes, I would be for making sure that those funds are spent there. But I also, again, don't want to pay any more taxes than anybody else. So I guess I'm a yes and a no. And again, it's hard because you vote yes, and quite frank, I don't think a community center is a priority right now. I think that there's funds that we need to spend elsewhere, and I know that's going to be a hot topic, but I think we've got issues as it sits. We've got things that need to happen
15 seconds.
at our water plant. So yes and no. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I will more than likely be voting no. So
Russ?
That was the right question to start with, because it's like this town is like so divided over this, and it seems to be sucking a lot of the air out of the room. It was a bit eye-opening last week when I sat in on they went through the budget, and I mean, there's a lot of needs in this town. It seems like we don't talk about any of those needs, but we do talk about, and we call it the library usually because it's the library, but it's a community center. Nobody here in this whole room doesn't love children and doesn't think that reading is important, doesn't think that literacy is super important, paramount even. Those things are foundational to just being a decent person. I love the idea of having a tool that's coming. If I was on the council, I love the idea of being able to execute things, ideas, and it takes money to do that. But I hate the idea of being in the position where half of the town is yes, community center, and the other half is absolutely no community center. I think it would be the wrong time, especially having it fail 3 times. It would be the wrong time for a council to kind of cram through a $7 million project and be the hero of half the town and the enemy of the other half. I think that it's beholden on the forces that want to have this library and community center built. It is their responsibility to sell it to this town. And I think they've failed to do it to this point. I would gladly support a library if it had the support of the town, not 50-50. This is a $7 million project. That's huge. In the town of Slater, it's going to take 2 decades potentially to pay for that. And in those two decades, you're going to be limited on the funding toward other things that we aren't talking about and aren't thinking about because we're constantly talking about the library, the library, the library. I love the idea of a beautiful library 2 doors down from my building. I do, but I don't love the idea of cramming through a project like that when we are so divided as a town.
Okay. I plan to vote yes. And a few things, I've taken some notes as some other folks have said, it's hard to like remember what you want to say. So, just to be clear, the 3 previous votes that were on the ballots that did not pass for the bond for the library and community center, those are different from this last vote. They are not the same. And those did have more than 50%. So the folks that say that there's less than half of this town that supports that project, more than 50% of the voters voted for those bonds each time, but you have to get 60. So that's one piece of misinformation that's out there, not just misinformation, it could just be misunderstanding. That I think is important to understand that those 3 previous bond votes are different from this last vote. As Taylor said, the last vote opens up a potential funding source for the city to use for a number of things. I believe the description and the ballot says something like any lawful purpose, and then it lists a number of ways that it may be used. It does not necessarily go to the library and community center. It would be for whatever the council would deem it necessary. I also agree with a number of the things that other people have said. There are a lot of things in town that need attention. Maybe the library and community center is a need that's at the top of that list. And maybe there are 4 or 5 other things that are higher up on that list. We haven't had a capital improvement plan to my knowledge to be able to discern what is on the top of the list and what's on the bottom of the list. And so I don't think it's fair to say
15 seconds.
that it's going to go directly to the library. I don't think the 2 should be associated. And if anybody wants to associate them, the previous bond vote did have over 50%. It just didn't have the 60% that it would have needed. But the last vote doesn't necessarily increase your property taxes like a bond vote does.
My turn? You guys got this in your mailbox? Everybody got one of these? Everything in here is true. Okay, you need to know that. What happened though is that the library, their involvement is that this actually brought attention to how we could use these monies. Right now, that's the only relationship that I see that it has directly with the library project. Is that it discovered that we could use this money to bond. That means that we can put this money and keep using it like we've been using it now to pick up odd projects at the end of the year if we didn't spend it. Because your taxes didn't go up and they can use it for anything that they want to. You can vote on it. It also means that you could set it aside. You could set this $280,000, $300,000 aside every year until you had enough to do a project. Well, how long is that gonna take? 30 years? And you've set money aside, but you haven't done anything with it? So what this money does is it allows us to leverage to do a bond. Now, what we use that bond for, to me, is totally open at this point, and we have to listen to the citizens of Slater. We have a lot of things going on, and I think it's time that we really focus on what we need as Slater to keep Slater as it is, a good community to live in. We all like living here. We all want to live here. So what do we need to keep us here? And to bring new families in so that we do grow our population ever so slightly. So again, I'm voting yes, because I want to leverage what we can do for Slater in the next 5 to 10 years and not wait 30 years to do nothing.
All right, we're ready for the next question.
I'll ask a question. I'd like to know when you look, into your crystal ball, what do you see Slater, what's the difference in Slater 5 years from now? That makes Slater even greater? 5 years.
You're starting with me again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Should we? Okay.
Well, you're gonna rotate. At the other one, they went down the line, rotated who started.
I don't have a problem with Julie answering first. I get some good ideas from her.
So,
Okay, Slater. I raised my kids here. It was great. Do you know that one of my first dates and meeting my husband's dad was going to the 4th of July celebration?
So how long is your thing with the ladies go? How long you plan to get down on ones?
I believe. Um,
Thanks, Erica.
we lived in Ames for a while. For about 3.5 years. As I was working up there, we were between houses, and we didn't even change our address. This was still our permanent address. This is our business address. We lived there for almost 4 years. We knew we were gonna move back here because this is where it's really easy. It's great to live here. We have a great community. When my kids were little, I'm gonna talk way too long, so I gotta make this quick. When my kids were little, I used to be able to pull into 2 gas stations on a snowy day. They filled up my car with gas and said, go on, and they'd bill me at the end of the month, okay? Life's not like that anymore. But we used to have 26 different businesses on Main Street. We had a lumber yard, we had a pizza place. So what do we want Slater to look like in 5 years? It's not gonna be the same. The library is not the same library that my kids went to check out a book. It's much more than that. We need a workout facility. We now have a new daycare after several years of not having one, but we knew we needed it. So what do I see Slater being? I want it to be a place where people want to live here, move here, where they can get on that trail, they can walk it, they can take their bicycle, leave your motorcycles and your scooters off of it, because I don't like those. Walking. But we have to have amenities. We don't have enough amenities at the moment and to do that. And we need more businesses because businesses generate property tax.
15
And
seconds.
property tax from a commercial business is gonna lower your individual home tax. So let's build Slater together for those reasons.
so we're going this way? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So I think about 5 years, but I also think about, 20 years. So I am a person who am living essentially where I grew up. And I hope that at least one of my 3 kids decides that in, 20, 25, 30 years that they want to come back here and do the same thing with their kids. But in 5 years, I would hope that we would see some intentional growth. Commercial growth, maybe some residential too, but intentional commercial growth. I would hope that living on 10th isn't stinky. I would hope. I would hope that in 5 years, maybe there's some better sidewalks. That we've got plans in place so that when there are streets that need repaired or projects that need done, that we can intentionally do those and we're not just reacting to the thing that came up. I don't know that I want Slater to feel a lot different than in 5 or 20 years. I think a lot of us live here because we like how it feels to live in Slater. We like the community, like this. So I would like to, in 5 years, see what we have now, but just maybe a little bit bigger and better. And whoever's sitting at this table, hopefully they're facilitating that with intentional strategic thought. There you go.
In 5 years, I'd like to see Slater become more bike friendly. The bike trail is not terribly accessible. When you're building a business or when you're building even personally, I think you have to lean into your strengths. One of the greatest strengths that Slater has is that bike trail. It was born clearly from the railroad. And now we're a bike town. We are really a bike town, but you wouldn't necessarily know it by the way that we're not Main Street doesn't connect. And I'm sure there's good reasons for some of these things, but I also think that we got to stop saying, no, we can't so quick. And we can find ways to make our Main Street more accessible. I think Julie's absolutely correct that if you will, if we can create an environment for business, a main street that is filled with vibrant businesses, it's not gonna happen unless those businesses really want to be in Slater. Well, why would they want to be in Slater? Don't we have to answer that question for them? I would love to see independently owned, like no chains at all. Thank you to the current council who struck down the Dollar General that almost happened. That would have been contrary to who we are, I think. And I think we need to continue to promote, I've been actively trying to find a restaurant to come to Main Street for 2 years now, and have personally given tours of the building down there. And we're really trying, because that is the easiest way for all of us to lower taxes, is to make it more business friendly. And that way, those businesses end up shouldering, believe me, we know, the bulk, you think your property taxes are high. They're high, they're really high, I know that. So I understand that really well, and I think that the trick is not to be so tunnel vision with it, but to, we have to bring businesses here, we have to bring small, independent, awesome, unique, colorful, vibrant businesses to our main street. And the rest will kind of take care of itself.
All right, I would agree with pretty much all of that. I think amenities would be awesome. Everybody loves cruising around town on their golf cart, obviously. So being able to cruise around town and get those amenities on your golf cart would be awesome. So, and I also agree, amenities comes businesses. So, but I love Slater. I love the small town feel. I love how if there's an event in town, there's fireworks. I love all of that. So I would like to not see it grow so fast we become the not community based anymore. You know what I mean? So but yes, amenities and businesses, and again, keeping to our roots and making sure that we keep Slater greater.
Well, in 5 years, I mean, that is a relatively short period of time, actually, in the growth of a city. But I think we've seen a lot happen over the last 5 years with the new subdivision, which not so new, I guess, but recreation going in out there. We have some new businesses on Main Street, and we need to continue bringing those things, as other people have said. We are at the junction of the two bike trails, so that has kind of made Slater a destination, but only during months where you can ride your bike. I know Nighthawk has worked in the past to bring snowmobilers here, and I think the key is bringing people to Slater for its uniqueness. I mean, where's my Gilmore Girl fans out there? We all, Stars Hollow. I mean, this is like the epitome of community and events and things like that. And I would love to see something where we have so many things going on that every person in the community can fill a role if they so choose. But we do need to revitalize our Main Street, bring some businesses in, and make Slater not just a place where people come to sleep because they work outside, but where they can shop and eat and have a sense of community with each other. So in 5 years, I would like to see, that building filled and some plans to grow it in a intentional manner, as people have said before.
And
I am.
in 5 years, I hope that running for city council is as popular as it is today. I hope that people care this much about Slater 5 years from now as they do right now, because I think we're at a peak. I don't know the actual statistic or if it's ever been tracked, but I think this is the most amount of people that have ever seeked a city council role ever. And I hope we have dedicated people. I'm looking at Ken and Sue here. If you guys don't know, the existing council that's outgoing, Stu and Ken both are 12 or 12 plus year servants on this city council. And Sean Bertzel's an 8-year servant. So I think that commitment to the long-term service is really important. And I hope we still have people in this community that care about that and want that. So I think that's really important. Everybody's right in everything they've said. We have to grow our downtown district. I'm a big believer that I would like to see Slater remain a somewhat stagnant population with some basic kind of growth, controlled single digit, percentage growth. But the only way we survive then is we have to attract commercial businesses. We have an awesome industrial park out here that was built and done by a local gentleman, you know, who maybe would be considered a farmer who's chose to give his ground up to Slater. We need to fill that industrial park. We do need to fill these lots on Main Street. What does that? How do we do that? Those are the things we need to navigate and figure out. But if we want to keep Slater the way it is and control the growth, then we need to have a strategy from attracting businesses, attracting industrial investment, but also attracting people. I like when Main Street's full of cars that come down and visit a business here, whether it's the station or the public house, or they shop at Larry's. And spend their time here, and then they get in their car, they've enjoyed Slater, and then they kind of leave town and leave us to ourselves here in Slater. So I think in 5 years, it's important we do those things, and we also try to keep the amenities like the great swimming pool we have. It's so rare to have that amenity, and it's so expensive. But we have to find ways to keep things like that, because that's what makes part of the community that way.
Oh, I feel like you might have read my notebook here.
He did, he cheated off me last time.
I kind of have all that. So I agree. I mean, I think that we need to grow our Main Street. We need to bring businesses here, but they have to have incentive to come here. So what is going to entice them to bring their business to Slater? I think developing the sports park will help a lot with that. With 3 young boys that play sports, I see the amount of people that can come in and out of the community for baseball and softball games. How do we capitalize on those people coming into this community? I agree. You know, we're at the intersection of 2 bike trails. So how do we capitalize on cyclists that are coming into this community? How do we get them to spend a few dollars in our community and then happily go home when they're all done? The pool is in 5 years, I hope that our pool is still here, because quite honestly, if something is not done about it soon, it will not be. It is holding on by a thread. I spent a lot of time there this summer, and so I know that. And our kids love it. Like, there were kids in line a whole hour before it even opened on the first day, and they're so happy. And I would hate to see that disappear from this community, and it does make us different. You know, Huxley's doing a lot of growth right now. I'm also concerned that, I definitely don't want Slater to grow like Huxley. There's a reason why we chose to move to Slater and not to Huxley. So I don't want to lose the small town feel. I want to definitely keep what we already have. Larry's is great. We need to keep Larry's. The businesses that we already have on Main Street are great. We need to do what we can to keep those, but bring new in as well.
15
And
seconds.
I'm afraid that we will lose our identity within the Ballard School District if we don't do something specifically Nighthawk Field. So we've got to think about that, and we have to come up with a plan. How much does it mean to us to keep that in this town? Or are we willing to give it up? Because that's coming.
All right, we're ready for the next question. I know somebody else stood up. In the back.
Mine's kind of long and you answered it to some degree. I know for years that they've been working on this library for a long time. What you had was 90% of any lawful purpose, including but not limited to city hall facilities, community center facilities, library facilities, and other capital projects, retirement of debt incurred for any purposes and any other lawful purpose. What happens is you've thrown in the library as associated with the funds. If that wasn't thrown in there, a lot of people would say, okay, what do you feel what is the top priority that needs to be addressed in the next, not 5 years, but in the next year or two with these funds, if this was to pass? Forgo the library, what you see is the need, where do these funds need to be allocated?
Okay. Let's start on this side. Go ahead.
Sure, I'm gonna go back to the pool, because that's what I know. That's where I've spent my summer, people. So for me, it's the pool. There are so many things, though. I feel like even the 240-some thousand, it's just such a small portion for what's really needed, but my priority is doing something with that pool.
Yeah.
I think we have a duty to do a better job of determining and gauging what it is that we need to spend those funds on. I think you heard it from a few people the last time the question was asked. Which was, we're gonna listen to the public, we're gonna listen to those people, but I think what our duty is right now is determine what are those things, and we've started with capital planning. And believe me, everybody in this room and everybody that serves on our current council and everybody that will serve on our next council has hundreds of ideas about great things we can do on Main Street. I've had my fair share of crazy wild ones, and they've evolved as I've become more educated and learned more about how our government works and how we get funds and where we spend funds. I think it's really hard to prioritize those right now. A couple projects that are really important to us, the city council currently is our R38 intersection or Lynn Street as it comes in from the north side of town to the south. Just to touch on that one, that's a project that could be executed without these funds using our road taxes. We can bond using those road revenues that we get to expand those things. We've got the odor issue, right? The odor is unacceptable, and that's, the council has accepted and is committed to solving that because the way it is today is not acceptable any longer, and we have to fix it. We can use the revenues from your water and sewer bills to address those problems. So we do have tools today to address some of the major pressing infrastructure specific. But I think it's our duty and this next council's duty to really pencil out and share with the community what the priorities are. Should the residents give us access to those funds and allow us the ability to bond for them? And I think we're just a stage ahead. This vote has come up and it's a great tool for us. But I think that our planning phase is just almost a year behind in terms of, hey, here's the priorities. We've done community surveys, we've talked to the community, and we know what you want so we can prioritize it. Because one of the things that's important to me and that I've learned in my time in government, that 60% threshold on a bond, what's really, really important to me as an elected official is that tells me that it's not just a majority of the people that want it, it's an overwhelming majority. And that's what makes me feel more comfortable saying, yes, spend the money. Because it's not just 50% and one person or 5 or 17 people over 50%. It's defined as overwhelming majority. That's what gives me the confidence to vote yes in those things and move forward on those projects. And we need that intel and we need to build that plan and share that with you, the public, with your input.
Okay.
So I'll go back to the fact that we need flexibility in how we spend these funds. Someone said to me, well, first of all, I'd like to bring up the topic of our strategic reserves. At this point, someone told me it was like 5.5 mil, 6 million. What is it?
The street, well, Jerry could answer the question. Craig's done hours on it. The city has those funds, but those funds are committed to various pots.
Okay, all right.
So it's not like there's just 5 million, just to clarify, there's not
Okay.
$5 million sitting there that we can just start throwing
Right.
where we want.
Right.
There's $2 million that's in our sewer fund and have to stay there. There's money in pockets that are restricted in usages.
Okay. So as Taylor said, I think we're starting on our capital improvement plan a year too late. But part of that plan is that we have guidelines so that we can say, oh yeah, this is in bad shape. We better save some money for that. Or we're gonna need a new snowplow in 5 years. Let's figure out if that's money we can set aside. And we can start doing those things and having a pot of money that we can draw from for those projects. You know, a lot of people have said, well, why do you want to use this money from Lost? We might have an emergency. Well, we might, but we might not. Or we might, but we might already have the funds because we've planned ahead for that through our 5-year capital improvement plan. So someone explained this to me, like using a bond spreads out the cost to those who will continue to live in Slater, not or move in later. If we pay cash for a big project, that's on the burden of everybody here, whether you die next year, whether you move out next year. A bond spreads that out. It's like remodeling your kitchen and living there for a few years so you get the money out of it. So that's why we bond for things.
15 seconds.
But I would just say, I'm with Taylor. I think that we'll take this slowly. We'll look at our priorities that come through the capital improvement plan. And this is not explicitly tied to the library. I think there's so many other projects that we'll study and put in a priority order. And at that time, then we'll bring it to the public and see what the comments are.
AJ?
Okay, so in terms of spending those funds. My big concerns are obviously the odor and the watercolor here in town. But if we have reserves funds for such, a lot of the time that can come out of your water fund and your wastewater fund. Those funds are for specifically that and only that. So the lost as a whole, that's going back to general fund. So general fund is going to be looking more at your streets and anything else along those lines. We've got a lot of issues there, and it's awesome that we've done some street repair projects, but we have never looked at what's underground. So with that, you're talking a huge cost anytime you're looking at a road resurfacing. And now you're going to throw your water main in there too. I mean, we've, from what I've seen, we have an excessive amount of water main breaks. And that goes back to aged infrastructure. So I think as a whole, the lost, that's going back to your general fund. I think that that should be spent with some of our current promises, frankly. I mean, I know we've had this sports complex on the docket for how many years? Let's get that done. You know, that's one of those things that was promised. Let's figure that out. Going back to general fund, we have some needs in the fire department in the next few years that we'll be looking at. That's going to be coming out of general fund. EMS has to get something else, plain and simple. I don't know what the perfect answer is there. That's up to EMS. I'm not on EMS, but I think that that's definitely a priority. So, I mean, there's these current promises. We need to come forward and finish those promises. I think that that's where those funds should be spent.
It's hard for me to say exactly where I think this fund should be spent because I haven't seen, I don't, you know, we're all operating with fairly limited information. We don't have any more information than you guys do. I think water is, you know, it's like air. I mean, it is, that has to be fixed. We gotta do better with the water for sure. I know nothing about the water. Maybe that costs a fortune. Maybe there's this little thing that we're not doing that we need to do. I have no idea. So it's hard to be so definitive. But I will say that we need to lean into our strengths and we need to do it soon. I think that bike trail, again, I would love to see that entire corridor, like Amy mentioned, including the pool and the Nighthawk field. It is beautiful. It's beautiful right now. It is beautiful right now, but it could be so much better. I have no idea what lighting costs. I've had some of the older residents who were under the impression that it was a promise that was made at some point that we were going to meet Sheldon with lighting. I'd love to see that happen. You know, not if it's like $8 billion, you know, I don't know what something like that costs, but I'm just imagining us to start to begin to look more serious about our biking community. To where it's accessible, and not even if you don't ride a bike, I don't ride a bike that much. But I walk my dog out there all the time, and it would be neat. It'd be awesome if it was lit up and it would feel more welcoming and it would feel more like we were built for this. We were ready for this. Invest in the Nighthawk field, the ball fields that are coming in. I've heard there's camping potentially coming for people that might be biking and doing some bike camping. That is awesome. I think we should lean into all of that stuff. Really that entire corridor to me, outside of Main Street, I love Main Street, obviously, because we live and work there, but once you get off of Main Street, I think one of our biggest strengths is that whole corridor going up past the grain bins and by the pool. I mean, if we lose the pool, I mean, that would be terrible. Same thing with the Nighthawk field. That would just be tragic, truly tragic. We need to invest in the things that are our strengths. We need to lean into them hard.
Erica?
I think when you talk about how to prioritize those funds, how council will do it regardless of who's on council, I hope that we're considering that capital improvement plan that's happening right now. I know that meeting, what was it, 2 weeks ago? You know, I stuck on the Zoom for a couple hours, but after that it was bedtime. But there were a lot of things mentioned, some things that were new, some things that kind of everybody was like, oh yeah, that's definitely a need. But I think we've got to, I'm a big believer in being strategic and intentional about the decisions that you make, about prioritizing efforts, money, being fiscally responsible. And I think that once that capital improvement plan is put together, whoever is on council will be able to make a lot more informed decisions. But part of that process is listening to the people of Slater, especially those department heads that are close to it, right? So we don't know what Parks and Rec needs, but then Jonathan Thompson tells us, because he's the chair of that board or the committee. So I think part of it is listening to the people that are experts in those fields, listening to the department heads when they say what they need. And then the hardest part is prioritizing it. So what is essential? Like what do we have to have? We must have safe water to drink. Like I mean, there's certain things that you must have, and you can't bump those down on a priority list. But then when we have those things too, considering what are all of the funding options? So lost, if passed, right, that would always be an option for council to a tool for them to use. But if there are other funds dedicated to that, using
15
that for
seconds.
those purposes. So I think that, I personally don't have a big initiative other than it has to be strategic. And I think this capital improvement planning should be the path to follow.
Julie?
Isn't it great that we're actually thinking about planning for something? I mean, years have gone by and I don't think that we had the leadership in staff at the city that we have now. And I will tell you that working with them on some personal projects, we are light years ahead already of the leadership that we have and the guidance that they can give us on where we want to go. And that's one reason why I'm excited to be on council, to be part of that. How would we spend that money? I don't think anybody, and I'll speak for everybody at the moment, I don't think any one of us know exactly where we would put that money today. And I think it's gonna take time to figure that out. But I do think we've got to do some of the things that have been mentioned that are really important. The first one for me is when you drive into Slater from the north, I'm sorry, we look like a podunk city that has nothing going on for it. You drive by the empty lot by the bank and it looks like a vacant, empty lot. You drive by a couple other ones and there's trash out front and other stuff. I mean, when you drive through here north and south on R38, we don't look like as cool a town as we are when you're other places in it. Also, I know that there's no connectivity between, it's hard to get from the Severs Trail to the Heart of Iowa Trail. There's no connectivity north and south on whatever side, east side of town. You can't get there. You have to walk all the way around or get there. So it would be nice if we had more connectivity to those trails. Not only for the bicyclists, but I think for the people. Like when I walk with somebody, sometimes we have to walk on city streets just to find a way to get to the other one and get around. So we have to look at our connectivity and things that are good for the local people. The next thing we need to do as a priority is look at our partnerships. Somebody mentioned the school district. We got to figure out how we're going to be a good partner with the school district. Kelly lost their elementary school in 20 years. Do we want to lose our school? I mean, that's viable if we're not a good partner with our school district. So where else can we have those strategic partnerships? And is it with economic development? Is it with other communities? Is it with Sheldon? I mean, you know, Ankeny's not far away. They've taken over Almond. When will they be at Slater's back door? Pretty soon. So I think we gotta look at those partnerships too, before we even figure out where we're gonna spend that load of money that we're gonna borrow.
Okay, we think we have time for 2 more questions.
So, my name's Andy Mylum. I just moved here a year and a half ago from a town that has a lost sales tax. We have a lost tax in Humboldt, where I came from. And it all goes to infrastructure, right? So that's kind of how it works, right? Everything kicks into infrastructure. One of the things that I've heard from a lot of you is we don't know what we're gonna do with it. And that there's a strategic plan that we're a year behind on. Well, I think I'd like to hear from all of you on the viability of postponing. I mean, if it votes no, right? But the viability of postponing something until you actually have a plan and then bring it back as a vote later when the plan can come to better fruition and you know exactly what you're doing. Julie, I get your point. You say, well, look, we just start building a bank, right? And I agree with that. But what's 1 year? 1 year, it's not the end of the thing, right? It can come back. These things the measures can be brought back. Also, I agree with you, Taylor. I think that when you say it's gotta be a 60%, right? That's how our government works, right? It's not simple majority. There's a super majority, and that's a great thing. So I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on postponing or deferring how this would work until your project or your planning is in a better place to be able to support actually using the lost, as opposed to just saying, well, we're gonna bank the money and then just kind of wing it.
All right, Julie, you wanna start on your side?
No.
That's
Start
fair.
in the middle.
I'll start.
All right.
I'll start.
Okay, Taylor said he volunteered.
Yeah, I think that is a very viable question and it'd be a very viable result. I'll be honest, if it fails this time, this is not the last time this community to see the request for this usage.
Right.
It will come back around if it doesn't pass this time, because it'll be a necessary need. The other thing is, and I think it's just fair to just be honest with the public, is property taxes aren't going down. They're just, if they're going to have to continue to go up, and maybe it's not that we raise our levy rates per se, but the valuations will go up. And so the property tax that we collect is going to have to keep going up if we're going to be able to just maintain the day-to-day that we're doing at this point. The other thing about the local sales tax today, I know Evie talked a little bit about it, everybody's talked a little bit about it. That fund has been used as kind of at the end of the year, it's usually whatever's left over from our regular operating or the projects throughout the year. In past years, there's been a chunk of money that's been set aside and left. And the council's made the decision to earmark that to several projects. It was 85,000 for the sports complex at the budget year last year. The 2 or 3 years prior to that, it was for the library community center. So over 3 years, we've given over $200,000 to put into the, savings account for these large projects. Julie's exactly right. You'll never save your way to a project. And I think we do have money in accounts to Ed's point, which is great. And I think it's good to be fiscally responsible, but I also think the taxpayers should enjoy their tax dollars while they're alive and able to enjoy their tax dollars. And so we have to be prudent about how we spend those tax dollars. To make sure that we're trying to do the best that we can with what we have as fast as we can. The local sales tax vote, what it really does for us is once prioritized, we can communicate to the public and clearly know exactly where we're going. It gives us the chance to accelerate the execution of those projects by borrowing that money today and paying it back over time with that. And then my last comment would be, we've got to get you some bomber gear. Is that Humboldt stuff? That Humboldt stuff does not fly down here very well.
It's not my fault we can beat.
Yeah, that's the truth. But guess what? Now you were part of the we, so you gotta get you some bomber gear. Hoping this later. We'll get it.
Well, in response to your specific about Humboldt uses it for infrastructure. Is that what you said?
Correct.
Okay, so according to research, many cities in Iowa have voted for a change of use for the lost revenue to specific city projects, such as affordable housing, parks and trails, and fire stations. So while Humboldt uses it for infrastructure, many other cities throughout Iowa use it for projects just as we're proposing. I get your point where, we need a plan and then bring this up again. But how can we plan if we don't know what funds will be available for those projects? If we had a source of funding where we could say, yes, we can plan to do this because this is a source of funding that we can tap into. That would, to me, make more sense than saying, well, we'd like to plan these things, but we don't know if we're gonna have the funds available because people don't want us to have the flexibility to use these funds and bond on them.
Okay, AJ?
Yes, I would be 100% on board with postponing, but as Taylor stated, I would presume it's coming back if it were to get voted down. Again, I think it's a great viable option, but right now, I just think it's bad timing, flat out. I mean, there's just too much animosity in the water. You drive around town, you're seeing signs, you're seeing mailers, just bad timing, just to put it plainly. I think if you can get it to vote, get it through now, and we are using those funds that everyone agrees on, that they need to go to certain places, that's great. But what is that? Not everybody's on the same page. So I think yes, it would be great to postpone, but again, if it does not pass now, I think it'll come back. So I guess back to that, yeah, I don't know. I'm a no because there's too much animosity in the water. Come back in a year or two and it gets back on the board, I would probably vote yes if I hear better things of what the potential of those funds are to be spent on. Now, we're all being told on flyers and signs and hearsay. So we don't have a rock solid plan right now. That's why I'm voting no.
Okay, Russ?
I don't have a lot new to add to this. There's so many unknowns. I guess if it was postponed a year, if that would solve some of our issues, again, I think that the real problem lies in just how divided we are. To me, you need much more than just a 50% plus one to go forward with any huge project. You'd love to see 60% or 70%, some overwhelming support for something that is huge like that. So whether it passes or whether it doesn't, I'll just speak for myself. I don't feel, that is not my intention, is that, oh, if that'll just pass, we'll get that library, we'll get that done, because that's my mission, is to get the library done. That's not it. I think that we have to execute as the council. We will be tasked with executing the will of the citizens here in Slater. And to me, it is way too divided to say, let's just go ahead, since we've had 3 times more than 50%. We weren't shooting for 50%. We were shooting for 60. And I would love to see at least 60 in order to move forward on a project so large.
All right. Well, it would be wonderful to have a crystal ball and a magic wand and be able to see how everything's gonna turn out. But like Taylor said, and others, you know, if it doesn't pass, it'll probably show up again. It's a tool that council can use. I think that, not knowing what it's gonna be used for, in my opinion, isn't a reason to necessarily vote one way or another. Again, it's associated a lot with the community center and library project. I've been on that committee since its conception. My oldest child was in my belly still when we had our first meeting. So we've been around for a long time, and we dealt with COVID and all sorts of other delays, and the project has gotten more and more expensive. To reiterate what was said earlier, the request of that committee for funding from council is what, and this is my perspective and my observation and my understanding, but that's what kind of stirred up the research of how can we use these lost funds. So while the committee made the request, or kind of stirred that thought, the purpose of the funds is not automatically going to the library and the community center. They are 2 things separate from each other. I think that whoever is sitting here, hopefully, if it passes, as those funds are gonna be talked about and used in a certain way, hopefully they're listening to the needs of each of the departments, of the citizens, and we've got a plan that we can follow. And we're not just saying this is the squeakiest wheel, or this is the
15 seconds.
the project we've heard about the longest. So, while I support the library and community center and think that that's very important, if this doesn't pass, and the committee has been in the position the entire time that if we don't have funding, we'll go back to the drawing board and we'll figure out something that will solve all of our needs. So we're not saying that it has to be this project. It can't shift at all. We're just trying to figure out our path forward, just like the city is with their capital improvement plan.
Julie?
The reason I think it's important that we pass it now is so we can move forward. We postpone everything around here. I'm sorry. It can happen 6 months from now. It can happen a year from now. It can happen for 2 years from now. If we know we have that pot of money, we can look at that list and say, okay, let's make some decisions. Which ones do we need in the next 5 years? Because the decisions we make today are gonna set the path for where we end up in 15, 20, 25 years. And that's what I really care about. I won't be around to see it probably, but I sure would like to help direct it that way. But if we don't pass it now and we wait another year, well, then we wait another year and then we wait another year. We're gonna have to do one of these projects. We're gonna have to do something. Would this money allow us to leverage enough with some other partnerships to do maybe 3 of those projects over 20 years? If they would, let's do them. Let's not just keep sitting here and saying, oh, we can do it next year. And I know it can come up for vote and we don't act that quick, but I think as a community, we still all want the best for Slater. So let's start doing some of it. Please, let's start doing something. I don't have that much time left.
Amy?
I don't know if I can chime in much more than what's already been said here. I will say, just to, Erica talks about the different departments and with being on the Parks and Rec Board for so long, I guess I just want to assure all of you that, some really great things are happening. I feel that I can tell on the Parks and Rec Board, like, there was a time when I felt like we were just spinning our wheels. We had all these ideas, we would shoot out these ideas, we'd want to make these changes, and they would just be dead in the water because we just kept postponing things, like Julie says. But there's a really great momentum taking place in this city. I don't know if you can feel it, but it's there. And each one of those little departments is building up that momentum, and they have a really good grasp on starting to plan and take a look at, what do we need to do in a year? What do we need to do in 2 years, 3 to 5 years, 10 years? Like, for the first time in a really long time, I am confident that our goals are going to be met and executed over time. This isn't just we get together and come up with all these plans and then it just is dead in the water. And so, I think that that's why we have these different subcommittees, is because they're the ones that specialize in that area. And I know that council's doing a really great job, and I hope that council continues to do a really great job at getting feedback from each one of those entities within the umbrella of the city of Slater, and prioritizing and doing what's best. And again, I think we're in a really great place, and I'm very encouraged because I have not seen positive things happening in this town like this since I started volunteering, so.
All right, thank you. Who wants to ask the last?
I've got a question that can be answered with one word from each candidate.
One word?
Hey,
And then we have room for 2.
I'm an old guy that's been around here for 50 years, living here at Slater. And maybe I have false memories. It used to be, I thought, people put their party affiliation on signs. I've got a ballot here, it's got no party affiliation whatsoever on it,
Yeah,
and I'd like to mark mine.
this is a nonpartisan position.
Yeah, that's how I look at it.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
it is.
In the best interest of every person here in the city.
It's all right, though. You can
So,
answer it however you
all right.
want. You can answer- Everybody can answer the question.
If they want to,
That's my question.
if they want to, yeah.
Yeah, so the Ames Tribune asked me this question and I just put it wasn't applicable because I truly believe that. I look at this as a public service position that I've already been in, the Parks and Rec Board, and no one ever asked me my political affiliation when I joined that. And so to me, this is just seeking a promotion and leveling up in what I already do. And my desire is to serve you all. My desire is not to be a politician.
Well, it's a political ballot.
Maybe, but.
I'm an independent because I think there's parts of both parties that suck.
I think decline to answer.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I would say, you can drive past my house and see how I vote on a national level. I don't care. But I want to represent these citizens of Slater. This is not a political position for me, as Amy says. I'm not gonna, make everyone gay. I'm not gonna make everyone transgender or whatever. I just want to represent the people of Slater in the best way possible. Every single one of you.
AJ?
I do see how you say it's a political ballot, but I do strongly agree with everyone else that national politics does not belong in city politics, period, end of story. Now, I do understand where you're coming from, that it does sway a person's mindset. I can agree with that, but for that, I think I'm just gonna say I'm independent. And
Okay, well, and I can understand that too. I've been here, practicing my chosen profession, paying attention to the kids. I don't have time to come, or I didn't at least, have time to come and discuss all these little back and forth things. My philosophy has always been elect somebody that I trust the most and let them do their job like I do mine. And I think it does make a difference whether you are a Democrat, the environmental party, the independent. Only I was an independent for a long time, but I only voted Republican, so I decided I was a Republican.
Yeah. Are the rest of the candidates,
Yeah.
did you wanna answer or not answer?
Do you want to say anything?
I'll say that I think that that's why this is so important. I think that if we get this right, a good local government can insulate you from the worries of the world around you. It can insulate you from the craziness that you may see in Ames or in Ankeny. These are just 10 minutes away. We have our own unique little thing that we have to protect, and we have to insulate, again, create what we want here and protect it, right? I'm not afraid to, I've never run for office, and I have voted in various ways in my life. I am a registered Republican, and I have been since I was 18. But that is not to say that, I would say that most probably of the Republicans in Washington DC are some of the most despicable people. So I don't identify, I'm not gonna wholeheartly embrace really any of them. Our job here is to actually insulate ourselves from that. I don't want that here.
Erica?
Yeah, if we could go back to the recording, however you worded that, AJ, that was very well spoken. I think it's unfortunate that the political party that somebody is affiliated with makes a difference with an election like this, but I mean, it does, and it affects people's opinions. We just see a lot of division based upon political party affiliation. I think that's just unfortunate. I am a registered Democrat, though, to answer your question.
Julie?
I honestly can't tell you at the moment. No, because I flip flop, because I wanna go to certain
Caucuses.
caucuses. So I have switched. And you can ask my husband, it's absolutely true. We have switched because there's some people I wanted, there's some people I have my own party. There's some people I wanted to vote for at a caucus. So I registered that year and I changed the next time. So I honestly can't tell you at the moment. I was independent forever, and then I wanted to go to some caucuses, and I've gone back and forth and back and forth. And I'd have to vote no at the moment.
Everybody.
Have the closing
Yeah.
So
Hey,
here's
just-
the last question.
Just real quick, how many questions is there left? Sorry, I am an elected mayor, so I do get to make this. How many questions are there? Is there
I only have a question I want you to answer. I don't-
1, 2, 3 questions? I know this is running over, but are the candidates okay if we cap it with those 3 questions that
Limit
are
us to 1
identified?
minute.
Yeah,
Right?
maybe do 1 minute instead of.
And we shorten our time?
It's okay.
Starting with this gentleman.
Goes over the 7 though, Taylor, are we gonna be off the Zoom meeting?
No, it won't cut us off. We've learned that lesson.
Girl has experience.
There's.
I wanna make sure every question gets the chance to be answered.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for coming out because we definitely need involvement. Being a member of the community club for years, I think it's fantastic. We've got this many people here. Do you guys realize there's probably 10 or 12 people in the community club that do everything for all the events we have here?
We
We
need-
could sure use some
We
help.
meet the third
So
Tuesday.
if some of you guys maybe show up, that would be awesome. Next, my question is, I think the biggest divide that everything is on this particular issue is because no matter how you want to say it, it is associated with the library community center.
It is.
So I think a quick answer, if each of you could just tell us If you would make that a priority, or is the priority just getting the lost funds approved? If you're gonna tell me that you're sitting there and you're not gonna make that your decision, that that is gonna be your priority, I think that would help an awful lot of people make a decision as to whether or not to support the lost funds. Because I think that is the number one issue that I hear, everybody I talk to, that's all they're concerned about is this and that are, I mean, they're one in one thing, I mean, that's it, it's just one issue. If you can make that determination, I think the first question asked was, that was what he was looking for, what is your answer? As far as the priorities, we have so many other things that are being. The pool, the plate, the ball field, I think we've got so many other things. Russ brings up great ideas about bringing in businesses. So I think we need to address all those, but I think we need to separate. And if we can get people to understand where you stand on that one issue, I think that would clarify the vote.
Since we're adding questions, we're gonna allow like 1 minute each to respond. You wanna start?
So you just wanna know specifically where I stand with the library?
Yep.
If I'm for the library or against the library?
If that would be a priority for you in a vote.
So you're asking about using the lost funds for
Yeah.
that specifically?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not against it if that's what the town wants. I understand that, you know, we do need a bigger library. The library, I would stay with my mom, and so that was where I took my boys on Wednesdays, and 10 years ago, the library was small for when I took my boys there. So I think that that's obvious. Do we need a multi-million-dollar library? I'm not convinced. Do we need to raise taxes for the library? Absolutely not. I think it should be done on a grassroots level. I don't think we should ask the government to help us to do that.
15 seconds.
So that's where I am.
Okay, that's kind of what I'm looking for, just give me a yes or no on the.
Don't start my time
That's
yet.
your priority.
We have an awesome librarian and we want to keep her because she does a phenomenal job with programming.
Agreed.
I support expanding the resources that our library needs, including space. I believe large community center space should be a private investment by private businesses who build buildings that raise taxes. I believe that we should, if we need community space, we should take care of the log cabin that we have today and determine what the future needs to be with that. And so I support the library, I support the community center. We cannot afford a $7 million building for a community center and library. Where, how, what is it? We just have to define the budgets and we're gonna have to operate inside of those confines to be able to accomplish the increased space, but it is a priority. Adding space to our library is a priority. And addressing community space, clean, good quality community space that can be rented for families and gatherings is a priority for me.
Ready?
Well, I'll go back to the capital improvement plan. We definitely need to look at the priorities of the city. And people have talked about wants and needs and essential services. I personally feel a library is an essential service. And if we need to improve upon it, that's an essential need. But I also know that if we have other priorities, like if you can't drive on a road or your water is stinky or whatever, that definitely those will be priorities above the library. And I would say, again, the language is that lost funds can be used for city projects, debt relief, taxpayer relief, and other lawful purposes. Again, a vote yes gives us the flexibility to do all of those things, not just the library. So I would say the library is not my priority. I would have to determine from our capital improvement plan what those priorities are.
Okay, I think I've kind of answered this, but I'll shadow Taylor on this. I think our librarian is phenomenal. I don't know that you can get much better. So I don't want to overshadow that, but I am not in favor of community center at this point in time. So no, I would not vote to use those funds on such. I think that there's greater priorities. And I think, yes, she has an awesome program. Is she tight on space? I'll be honest, I haven't gone to a lot of her programs, but from what I've heard from everyone that attends, it's cramped. But a side of me also thinks that we're building a library for the librarian. And if something were, if this would cause her to leave, you know, are we gonna need that bigger building someday? I don't know.
15
So
seconds.
again, our librarian's phenomenal. I don't want to overshadow that. If that is a necessity for some more community space, I'll shadow Taylor again on that. So.
Similarly, I guess, she is doing a fantastic job. I think she is drawing interest from other communities. And I think it's unfair that the Slater taxpayer would have to shoulder that financial burden to meet the needs of the people that live in Polk City or Ankeny or Ames. Maybe there's somewhere where we could get those funds, where we could get help to build the library of her and everybody's dreams and do it without breaking the average resident in Slater's back, because we already pay extremely high taxes. And to just make that, I think our library might be nearly large enough for a town our size if it wasn't for her excellence and bringing in all, you know, she's really doing a fantastic job. But is it right to say, okay, do as good a job you can, and if you can bring in 1 million people, then all of the taxpayers have to figure out how to pay for all that. We have to be careful to do that. We have to make sure that the residents of Slater should be our concern, that we should concern ourselves with Slater's residents before we try to meet the needs of Polk City or Ames or anybody who might be traveling to our wonderful little community with an awesome library program. It is clearly, but we gotta be careful making that the citizens' problem.
Erica?
I have said I'm on the committee for the library and the community center, so obviously I support that project. But I will say the building as it is, you know, somewhat designed now is not necessarily set in stone that that's how it's going to look when we build it. So I would not prioritize the use of lost funds for library or community center over essential services. Because it's near and dear to my heart, it's pretty high up there on a priority list, but like I said earlier, I think it's important to listen to our department heads and what their needs are. That's supported by data and information, which the library has provided.
15 seconds.
And I think that we've got to listen to those department heads, we've got to listen to Jen just as much as we would listen to Brant or John Thompson or Mark. And address those needs as we need to strategically.
Julie?
Well, I get confused between a community center and a banquet room. And they're totally different things to me. Community center to me is where the people of the community, us in this room, and other people go there to gather. And I think that is important. When you see our Main Street active for certain events, like the Christmas gathering, the town divided, you know, pick all those. When we have people that live here using Main Street, it keeps us vital. Other towns that have lost their Main Street lose a lot of that community spirit. So I think the Main Street is extremely important to us. A facility that could combine a library and a community center where we gather on a regular basis would be great, but we can't afford what we've got on the books now. But it could be a driving force for a better Main Street. And then I would be very interested in it, because that would be something to kick us off and move us forward in that area.
What do you want?
I'm unopposed. I sat here and listened to this, and I went to the other one, and so far, I gotta tell you. This is like a political circus. Come on, people, we want answers and we get talk, speak, and whatever, but here's the question, simple. And I've been here since 25 years, and I'm kind of outspoken, so I really don't know that I care. But here's the question, what the hell have you been doing the last 25 years or so that I've been here that you don't have a budget? The lost money, doesn't that pretty much come in the same amount every year? And if you can't plan that, and you were just told that you wait till the end of the year, the money wasn't spent, you put it in a bucket. That just tells me that something's not being done in council. And I know Doc May, and I like him a lot. But someplace along the line, you're telling me that this loss is an answer for failure to plan and perform? Well, that's what everybody said.
we can't use this money, now we wanna use this for projects. You ought to know what your projects are, you
So,
ought to know you
what's your
got water
question?
mains. That's the question, tell me why we're not worried about it. Money comes in, why are we not using it in the past for planning systems?
He's only been mayor for 2 years.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a great.
No, but.
And he's got.
I think it's a great question, and I would answer it like this. Our city council, I think, can only be as effective as the information that's given to them, or as successful as the staff's work that they provide to councils to prepare them. I think the reality is, we have always been a very frugal city, and our department heads have operated from a scarcity mindset. Because there were times when this city had nothing and had to crawl out of that. I just had that conversation with Mark today, where buying a new shovel was a big deal. And so knowing that some of our department heads, which we're very, very fortunate, if you look across the board in our department heads, Mark Estrom, longtime resident, grew up here. Jennifer Gogarty has been here for 10+ years, I believe. Our department heads, the people that have worked here in our departments are very tenured. So they came from an area where it wasn't, you didn't have money to do big things because you had to survive on what you had. The other thing is, I think our council in the past was potentially misled about the staffing needs of the city. And we had prior staff that maybe took on more than was humanly possible for individual people. And rather than recommending expansion and adding of staff, they tried to do it all themselves. And I think that put us behind the 8 ball, but our councils were only as good as that information that came to them as far as staffing. We've always budgeted. And we've always ran a conservative budget and tried to be fiscally responsible, self-perform as much as we can. The difference today is department heads used to plan for big projects in their own way, and they would fund them by setting aside some money every year, is the way that they would.
Now
fund.
you've got him.
And that, well, both, our whole new staff's new. The difference now is we're asking them, hey, a plan in your head is not very good for the residents and for the elected officials to tell the public. So what we knew and what we're doing now for the first time in my time in Slater, it's been done in small, ways in the past, but what we're doing now for the first time is we're like, no, we need to know everything that you want to do that's over $5,000 in the future. Tell us, every department head. Council, what are your priorities over $5,000? We're trying to get that big list and prioritize the timing of that. Then we have to back into the funding of that. How do we pay for it? Where does it come from? Can we get outside funds? Do we need inside funds to build that? So, long story short, I don't think there's fault on anybody for where we sit today. I think what's exciting is this room's full of people. There's 7 people that want to be here. We've got good staff pieces in place. We're staffed efficiently and we're focused on the right things. We can't fix the past things. And so I want this room and this town to have confidence that some of the moves over the last 2 years and 3 years and 5 years have led us to this point. And that's good leadership over time to me. And Slater's in a good position. We're not in the opposite position where this room's filled because we're worried about whether we'll be able to produce clean water tomorrow. We're really not. We're financially fine, but that creates the opportunity that you are all trusting us so much to do in the right way.
Very good answer. I mean, I'm appreciative of that, because I'm not caring, it's about time I got away from the first question I brought up about school. That's irrelevant to whatever we wanted, to my part, But I wanted to hear the positivity out of your mouth, and I did, I
Yeah.
liked it.
Good. Can I count on your vote? Or will you vote for the other guy? You don't have a write-in, do you? You don't have a write-in, do you?
Last question right here.
Wow, it's a lot of pressure.
See, I got an hour, right?
Well, 3 hours if it's a council meeting.
Don't get me started. I really appreciate all these people being here. I wouldn't have been on council this long if there had been 7 people with this quality that would have run. I wouldn't have been here right now. Somebody would have told me they were gonna run 2 years ago. But there's just a couple things I heard that I'd like to really bring a little bit of clarity to, that I haven't heard addressed at all. One is the, couple said it really well, that the loss is a completely separate issue from the library community center, in that the first decision is by the voters if they're gonna approve loss. And what that does is it avoids your property taxes from going up, because it's a revenue stream that we will leverage, in the best words of Julie, is because how many of you in this room would own your house if you saved up and then bought a house? Raise your hand. Anybody stay their way to a house? No, you leveraged it by mortgaging. And that's what this fund does, is it allows you to mortgage that money to be able to do something now and not wait 30, and would you have been able to buy your house in 30 years of saving? No, you wouldn't have, because you still had to pay rent while you were trying to save for it. And that's the same thing that's going on here. We're paying the rent with this lost money because we didn't know we could leverage it and bond against it. And that's all this does, is allows it to bond against it. But yes, the library community center was a need that's been weighing down everything else we've tried to do in the last 5 years. And so that was how it was couched. It was also approved over 50% every time. 60% doesn't sound like a high bar from 50. The last time you elected a president was 60% was over 50 years ago. Richard Nixon, so we didn't even do a great job at 60%. Sorry, that was editorial. But those are two big things, and so the new council that we elect out of these people will be what will determine if they use that percent, that's the loss of money, or how it gets used, but give them a tool to use it with, is what I would say. Secondly is, even if they vote to use it towards the library community center, doesn't mean you're gonna draw that money out. What it does is it shows grant writers that you have potentially 2 million, 3 million, whatever that number is, in the bank as a bond, but you don't actually even pay interest on that bond until you take the money out. Hopefully, you're never gonna take that money out. But it allows you to apply for grants because you've got a percentage of the project. Now you can go out and apply for a grant that right now we're not eligible for. That money may never get taken out to be actually used on a library community center, but it will be withheld to show that there's money that a bonding company isn't gonna lose money on it, if we decide to use that money to begin with. And Taylor, you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of the stuff that I'm talking about. But,
What's your question, Ken?
my question then is actually for Taylor. When the council voted to approve this loss originally, you vetoed it. So are you now in favor of it, or are you gonna, or where, I'm not sure.
I'll vote yes this time for the tool, but what the key is and what the residents need to think about here is, if this passes yes, you're putting it in 3 council members' decision to bond up to 20 years for every 90% of every local sales tax dollar. So the question isn't, should we spend it on a library, should we not? Is, do you trust that 3 council members will spend it for the right way? Has council demonstrated to the general public that our priorities and our plans are clear and you know where those funds are gonna go? Because there has been council that has said, we need to give this money and we need to give as much as we can to the library to get it done. The other thing too, just about the project as a whole is, and I think Eric has said it well, and I think everybody here kind of mentioned it. The reality is we do need to get grants and we do need to do that. Some of the most grant dollars that have been given towards a library in the state of Iowa is $500,000. We're talking about a $7 million project. So even if we pledge money to it, so the fundamental problem we have right now is just the economics of getting to the objective. So I think it should go back, that project should specifically go back to the drawing board for reassessment. And we, as a council, should proactively determine how much could we give to this? How much has been fundraised? Where's the gap? Okay, how much grants realistic? Because there's a group of people in here that have spent years and sacrificed years from their families. I think the pursuit of a $7 million project is the definition of insanity at this point. And so I want to give a clear pathway by finding council's commitment financially, pairing it with the existing fundraising, adding in some grant dollars that we think are feasible, then going to design a building with inside of that budget on a schedule that can be executed economically, I think is the key. The other thing about the local, and you know better than me, you've served way more than me, Ken, the local sales tax thing about not raising property taxes, this and that. I think all the revenue that we have that comes into the city, as you know, goes somewhere. Last year, when the 85,000 went to the sports complex, that was 85,000 left over of 250,000. So where did the difference between the 85 and 250 go? It went into the budget and projects throughout the year. Well, now if you're saying you've got a bond and you need 250 to service that bond, well, then we've got to pull the And, you know, the $200,000, $160,000, whatever the difference is, out of our, what we've been using it for. And so it does create a shortfall somewhere. Can we cut the budget? Can we reduce expenses to offset that for the betterment of the community and the execution of the project? Yes, I think the tool is great. I think if we could get the tool, if the residents would bless us with the tool today, that's great. But I also think it's really hard for me to say, as an elected official, the mayor who gets no vote in this. I know how we're gonna use it, and I'm confident that if you entrust that money with us, we'll use it to achieve the things you want. Because I just don't think those are clear yet. But do we need the tool? Could we use the tool sooner than later? Yes, the problem is if this vote passes from a timeline perspective, what's key is this vote will not be available to us, the council, to use until July of next year. So a vote yes, we're still 6 months away from any action that could be taken on that. And so if that's the case and we say we push it a year and that, yeah, sure, that could be logical. We could have time to earn your respect. But if we push it a year, that means now we're talking a year and 6 months away from being able to access and utilize those funds. So to Julie's point, kick the can down the road. Those are the things. It is not fun to sit here and the 60%. I hear what you're saying, but a council has to pass a vote by 60% for it to pass, 3 out of 5. So that's what the minimum is to pass an ordinance or resolution here. I think what the 60%, what I appreciate about it as it was designed by 4 founders, and that is the reality of it makes me feel a lot better and sleep a lot better at night when I know 60% of the people I run into at Larry's are on board with the vote I made or the decision we made versus the 50, closer to 50%. So I want the project to get done. I want to figure it out, but I want to do it economically. But I think the way that starts is defining the budget and defining the timeline and doing it within confines that we know we can do, regardless of how much grant dollars or additional fundraising we get. We know that we have a safety net that the city can backfill by that at the end, so that we know construction starts in this time, 2026, and set that budget. And then we just need to go back and figure out how much square footage can we get? How good of a facility can we get for this? And then do it.
So was that still a yes?
I'll vote yes for the public to give us the local sales tax dollars, this is the council to use it. But I'll actually be in New York that day, so I won't vote.
Stop it.
All right, everybody, we're past our time. Thank you very, very much for coming. Thank you for your interest in making a forum and your passion. Thank you to the candidates for the awesome response. Thank you.
Well done.
You wanna stop, America?
You want my closet?
Thanks, you guys.